All right, welcome back to Horn Takes, your Texas football and baseball talk destination. I am Sean Redfern. It is Thursday, and we are headed to Big D today. We are excited to be headed to Dallas for the Red River Shootout. Before that, though, we'll talk about Trace Otra games week 7. Y'all know we had a rough week last weekend. We went from undefeated to 1-2 in 1 week, hanging in there at 13-2. And then we'll be hanging with Hardge a little bit today. Excited about that. We love having Hardball Hardge on the show. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, you can find us at Apple Podcast, iHeart Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. You can also find all the podcast episodes at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Check those places out, folks. Good content to listen to on the road, good content to listen to on the plane, on the train. If you're traveling by covered wagon, traveling by open wagon, just traveling by horse, you can get us at any of those places. Trace Otra games, week 7. All good things must come to an end. And our undefeated streak came to an end last week. We're 13-2 headed into week 7. There's some pretty damn good games this week. We talked about last week just not being a lot of games to choose from. How it was a terrible week of college football. And it just turned into an absolutely amazing week of college football. We'll see how this weekend turns out. Some good-looking games on the surface. We'll start with number 2, Ohio State, at number 3, Oregon. This is 6:30 p.m. kick on NBC or Peacock. Ohio State a 3-point favorite on the road. Both teams undefeated, 2-0 in the big. I think this is a big time, first year, new look, big matchup. You got some major, big championship game type implications. You got some college football playoff type implications. The winner's in the driver's seat for both of those things. And then the loser has a lot less margin for error. I don't think it'll be interesting to see if the big can get a non-conference championship team into the playoff, or how many non-conference championship teams the big could get into the playoff. Early this year, SEC looking kind of not as dominant as you may think, or not as dominant as a lot of people thought they would look. Only one undefeated team left in the SEC. Looking at the eyeball test, man, both these teams have been pretty good. Ohio State hasn't had any close calls. Oregon's had a couple, those first couple games of the season. Don't know what that was all about. I didn't get a chance to watch them early on in the season. Offensively, Oregon's going to throw the ball all over the place with Dylan Gabriel. And they do run it okay. I mean, they're pretty good, actually. I think they average like 165 yards a game on the ground, which is pretty damn solid. Ohio State's going to be much more balanced. I think Ohio State is probably more balanced than they've ever been. They don't seem to be, to me, they don't seem to be, they just seem to be good at running the ball or passing the ball. And they don't really have a huge threat at the quarterback to run the ball. So there's not a lot of hidden rushing yards there. I think defensively, both these teams are very, very good. They're good against the pass. They're good against the run. They don't give up a lot of points. Ohio State's got one of the best scoring defense. I think they have the best scoring defense in the country. Certainly overall, 2 of the top 15 probably total type defensive teams in the country about to face off. I think these are clearly the 2 best teams in the big right now, and I don't think it's really close. I think, again, going back to paper, I think Ohio State's probably a little bit better, maybe on paper. It's not a huge gap. I think when you're talking about this game in particular, though, you got to go to, it's a home game for Oregon. Can Autzen Stadium kind of live up to the lore? Can Autzen Stadium deliver just a really tough environment for Ohio State on Saturday night? I think my X factor on the field in this game's got to be Dillon Gabriel. He's much more likely to hurt the other team with his arm and his legs out of those two quarterbacks. He made a lot of big plays with his legs in the Red River Shootout last year, which led to that victory over Texas. I think if he does similar things in this game, Oregon's got a pretty damn good shot to win this game. Those are kind of like the plays that, were backbreakers you don't account for. I think Dillon Gabriel probably runs the ball a little bit so far this season, but he did a little bit last year before they played Texas, and and it was all like, it was just off play shit. I mean, they didn't design runs for him. He just took what we gave him and ran all over us. I swear to God, I hope they don't run that prevent shit against Oklahoma this year. I might jump off the back of the Cotton Bowl. So I think the big question is, can Oregon finally get it done on the big stage? Or does Ohio State walk out of Autzen with a W and kind of become the 2024 version of Washington for Oregon this year? Oregon had Washington twice last year with a lot on the line. Couldn't get them done. Couldn't get them beat. I think whoever slows down the running game more effectively, keeps that other offense more one-dimensional, I think they got a really good shot to win this game. Ohio State not been tested on the road. How will they respond? I mean, there's just a lot of interesting little sort of, not necessarily X factors, but just a lot of little storylines that kind of are interwoven into this game. Outside of just a good team versus a good team. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think Autzen Stadium is going to be absolutely electric. And I look for Dillon Gabriel to make some plays with his legs. I think that's going to be the difference in this game. I think Oregon upsets Ohio State at home and takes a firm hold on the number one spot in the big. I think they win this game 27-24 over Ohio State. Number 9, Ole Miss at number 13, LSU, 6:30 kick, ABC, ESPN Plus. Ole Miss 2.5-point favorites. Ole Miss 5-1. Their only blemish, that loss to just a really stout, tough, sort of defensive Kentucky team at home. LSU's 4-1 with a week 1 loss to USC. For LSU, this is an opportunity to stay undefeated in the SEC. And then you flip it around for Ole Miss. They're already 1 loss down. They got to keep pace with 8 other 1-loss teams really early in SEC play. I mean, this weekend and next weekend could be weekends where teams in the SEC get eliminated from SEC championship contention. Certainly not mathematically, but we don't always wait for the math to be perfect before we say, yeah, they're not gonna, they're done. I don't think you always have to do that. Math proves what you think. A lot of times you feel it and you see it and you think it before the math all lines up. And I think there's probably some teams over the course of the next couple weeks in SEC play could get eliminated for all intents and purposes. Certainly would be on the outside shot to get in. Certainly be in that group. I think these teams are very, very similar offensively when you look at the statistics. Ole Miss runs the ball quite a bit better. And they score about 9 more points per game. But everything else, really, really tight. Really, really close. Ole Miss allows almost 100 less yards per game in total defense than LSU does. So defense a little bit different. Little bigger gap there. Both teams are much more susceptible to the pass than they are to the run. Ole Miss leads the nation in rush defense. Maybe because they're susceptible to the pass. Who knows? We heard all offseason LSU's got this outstanding offensive line. Some people said it was the best offensive line in college football. I don't think we've really seen that out of that group so much this year. They don't run the ball all that well. We've seen teams get pressure on the quarterback. South Carolina absolutely wore this LSU offensive line's ass out. And I know LSU won that game. And I know if you had to win the game, you'd be all right with your offensive line getting their ass wore out. But it just makes me think, what are they going to do against an Ole Miss defensive line that's just more talented, you think? Be an interesting thing to watch in this game. How does that offensive line hold up? Can they get some success on the ground? I don't know if it's just because they haven't tried to do it, or maybe the opportunities haven't been there to do it, but they haven't run the ball all that well this year. So can they get the ground game going, and can they protect Nussmeier in the pass game? I think that's a huge key to this game for LSU. To me, this Ole Miss team is just kind of like an Ole Miss team. I think they're probably more talented than any other team Lane Kiffin has had there at Ole Miss, but they're just Ole Miss. I don't even know how to explain what I'm trying to say. Like they should be good, but they just aren't living up to the potential of how good they should be. I think Lane Kiffin just kind of, man, I just feel like he just kind of like strolls through life, even like during games. He just kind of, I mean, I will never forget the game against Texas Tech a few years ago where he could not convert a fourth down, and he went on absolute tilt and did not stop trying to convert fourth downs. It didn't matter how far it was. He was like in a game inside of the game. He was trapped inside of this other game. And that game was try to convert a fourth down. And they lost that game because of that. That's Lane Kiffin to me. I think Death Valley at night plays a huge, massive factor in this game. Ole Miss, one of the most penalized teams in college football. And you kind of got to figure that's because they're undisciplined. If you're already undisciplined and you're in an environment like that where it's tough to hear, I don't know if that bodes well for Lane Kiffin and that Ole Miss group. I think it's going to cause them some problems. I think the name Death Valley this will just be another notch on the belt of Death Valley and those LSU fans. Whether they win or lose, I think they're going to cause Ole Miss a shit ton of problems offensively. Personally, I think Ole Miss is walking into a buzzsaw. I think LSU will have some success on the ground. And I think they'll turn this into just one of those old-fashioned, like, kind of grinded out type games. And Ole Miss is not good in those types of games. Ole Miss is a front-runner team. Ole Miss is like one of the last of the finesse teams in college football or in the SEC. It's flashy. But if they can't do that, they can't just line up and crack heads for 60 minutes. They just don't win in those types of situations. I like the Death Valley night crowd behind this LSU team to go for a 24-23 upset win at home over the Ole Miss Rebels. Number 18, Kansas State at Colorado, 9:15 p.m. kick on ESPN. K-State 3.5-point favorite in this one. Both teams 4-1. Colorado 2-0 in Big 12 play. K-State 1-1. For K-State, this is a must-win. You got to keep pace in the Big 12. For Colorado, it's kind of an opportunity to sort of emphatically. A lot of people have kind of been talking the last few weeks. Does Colorado really have a shot at the bid? And I'm not talking about the Dion cultist. I'm talking about like normal people that understand football and don't just like look at hype and base all their decisions off that. I'm talking about people that just understand college football are starting to kind of wonder, is Colorado got a chance? You see Texas Tech 3-0 at the top of the Big 12, and you see a lot of the people that we thought were going to be contenders have already got losses or multiple losses. Who really wants to go win that Big 12? So can CU kind of throw their hat in the ring and emphatically say, hell yes, we're here for the Big 12 title race. Thing is, we've seen Colorado be 4-1 before and then lose every single one of the rest of their games. It just happened last year. So, is this CU team, is it last year maybe slightly better? Is it significantly better? Do they have a shot to kind of run at this Big 12 championship? Offensively, I think K-State has the edge in total offense, and they are way more balanced. Colorado just cannot run the ball. They're average like 80 yards per game. This is not as good of a K-State defense as we're used to seeing, but they're way better than Colorado. I think the only area where Colorado is marginally better than K-State is passing defense, and honestly, neither one of these teams very good against the pass. I don't think CU is going to be able to run the ball whatsoever, and I'm not even sure if they'll even try. I mean, do they ever try? I don't know. I think Shadur Sanders going to make some big plays down the field if the offensive line can hold up. K-State's one of the better teams in the country at getting pressure, finishing with sacks. We've seen this Colorado offensive line struggle really bad against a Nebraska team that, if you look at it like from a talent perspective, probably about the same as this K-State team. They got all up in Colorado offensive line's business. This is a home game for Colorado, but that honestly does not mean anything. It's going to be an absolute non-factor in this game. You look at K-State, every time we talk about K-State, we talk about how tough they are, how disciplined they are. I don't think Colorado is any of that, and especially in the trenches, they're not. And to me, that's a recipe to get beat. I think I think Colorado's going to go to the well so often in the passing game that Shadur Sanders will hit some big plays. He'll have some good numbers, but I don't think they're going to be able to consistently move the ball up and down the field against this K-State team. I think K-State's going to sort of pile up some yardage on the ground early, get CU wore out to where that depth starts to become a factor. And I think this game's over by the end of the third quarter. I like K-State big in this one, 38-20 over Colorado. So there's our Trace Otra games for the week. We'll see how we do. We'll see if we can get back to at least 2-1. I feel pretty confident about these picks. I didn't feel real confident about last week, so we'll see how that goes. I got the opportunity to sit down with my friend Mike Hardball Hardge a little earlier this week, and we talked the Red River Shootout. I'm here with Mike Hardball Hardge of AM 1300 The Zones, the Hardge Knocks Life. That airs at 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on AM 1300 The Zone. Always a pleasure to have you on, Hardge. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm glad to be here talking about Texas football. It's that time. Everybody's been waiting for this particular moment. We've had a lot of success up until this moment, but it really wouldn't have mattered because this is the moment that everybody's talking about.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I've been excited this whole season so far, but I really feel like I'm now getting really, really excited about Texas football. We actually got a chance to go up to Michigan and watch that game, and that was a hell of a time. But it still just doesn't hold a candle to getting ready for this week, getting excited about the Red River Shootout, the fair, and just all the things that kind of go along with this game. Before we jump into that, though, real quick, the morning kickoff. So you got is that just a podcast or is that a completely different show you got with Mark Henry?
It's a completely different show now with Mark Henry, the world's strongest man. I still do the Hard Knocks Life. I put it in a segment now as opposed to having the whole thing all about me. I do still do some of the podcasting for the Hard Knocks Life. But yeah, the morning kickoff with the world's strongest man and WWE Hall of Famer, the Mark Henry has been a blast. I've learned Mark and I have been friends for a very long time, but you can be friends with somebody and still learn something new about that person, right? And so that's what I've been able to do with Mark. It's been fun, it's been entertaining, and most importantly, he's given me a new perspective on certain things.
That's outstanding, man. I saw that the other day, and I haven't got a chance to check it out yet, but I definitely will do. You guys should check them out too, man. These guys are they're on Twitter at Hardball Hardge. You can Hardge is always tweeting something and always got the show going. Good stuff. I try to listen in the mornings when I can, but I have a ton of meetings usually that time of day.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
get
always
it.
work out, but
Get over
good
to the
stuff.
podcast page wherever you get your podcast, just like
That's
this one
right.
right here.
That's
After
right.
this one is over, you can go over there and listen to me and Mark Henry.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, that's awesome, man. I never try to get Mark on here one time. I like to talk to
Oh,
big, strong dudes.
yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
All right, Harge. Before we really get into it, Red River Shootout or Red River Rivalry? What's your take on that?
Well, I don't want to sound like Elmer Fudd, so I'm all about the shootout, baby.
There you
But
go.
I got but I
Everybody
got scolded. I got scolded by Craig Way. I
did
got
you?
scolded by Craig Way because I kept wanting to call it the Red River Shootout. He said, Mike, I
Can't
need
do that.
you to say it slowly, and it will be a lot easier for you where you don't have the alliteration of the
Yeah.
word.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. Me and Craig Way, we just might have to fight on that one because
No
I have a
doubt.
hard time. I have a hard time wanting to call it that. All right. All right, Harge. It's Red River Shootout week. We're
Let's do it.
undefeated, ranked number one in the country. How are we feeling about the 2024 version of the Red River Shootout?
I'm excited about this version of it. We talked a little bit about leading up to this moment. You go back and you look at Texas's success and the story of the season. And I know that you and I talked about this at the very beginning of the season, where Coach Sark brought up the word obsessed, and his obsession for this season. He was obsessed for what happened last year. Coming back into the season, he was even more obsessed because he wanted to taste it. He wanted to feel it again about being in the college football playoffs. I believe that every ounce of that is true. I believe that every ounce of his team wanting that same obsession is true. I was at the press conference yesterday, and he talked about how he feels when his team speaks to us. It's like he's hearing himself talk. And that is an outstanding thing. As parents, we want our kids to walk and talk and carry a certain persona the way that we do. Well, sometimes they get off that path, and you got to always find a way to get them to respect it. And that is exactly what Coach Sark has done with this football team. He's gotten them to respect him, respect his message, and more importantly, respect themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things I think Sark nails is the whole culture vibe, and I think a lot of college football head coaches still struggle with that, even though it's been proven time and time again how important it is. Sark gets it, and he's good at it. And you're right. When you're leading people and you start to hear them saying the same things that you're saying, and you can tell they really mean it, man, that's when you know you've arrived.
Yep.
You've got that group of people where they need to be. Everybody's focused, everybody's on the same page, and that's how you win. That's how you win at anything. No doubt that's how you win in football. What is your favorite thing about the Red River Shootout? I've been talking all week about just some favorite stuff, and I get giddy this week. This week to me
Right.
is like Christmas when I was 8 years old.
Right.
I have a lot of favorite things about the Red River Shootout. What's one of your favorite things about the Red River Shootout?
It's the atmosphere as a whole. Obviously, the food is always fun to try, and being around some of your friends and watching a lot of them act like idiots because they just lose their mind at this particular time. But I just think being in that atmosphere and the energy, no matter what, you hear people talk about. Let's go inside the stadium. You hear people talk about the sound can be deafening. Well, it is because it's constant noise. No matter if it's your team doing good or the other opposing team, there's so many people that is in that arena that you are sitting there and it's constant noise. There, it's every you think your team is doing something, and it's actually the other team. That's how loud it is. So I truly enjoyed that part of it, but I really, really enjoyed the fair atmosphere. Eating up, getting up early in the morning, eating that corn dog, waiting in line, trying to get your coupons. Can we do something about that? Can we do something about the coupons, man? If you
You know
don't have a
what?
credit card or a debit card, you should not be able to go in there.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, they have the little kiosks, and I'll tell you a story, Harge. A couple of years ago, I found out that you could buy tickets ahead of time online. And so I thought, man, that's got to be quicker, man. So I bought some tickets online. It is absolutely not quicker. Never ever because you can only pick them up in one spot. And
Exactly.
it took me like 45 minutes to find this little tiny kiosk where there was actually people to hand me my tickets. We just come in, man. We come right in the gate, and there's a couple of kiosks right there where the trains drop you off
Yep.
and I just hit one of those up every time. Like we'll hit it up Friday morning, we'll blow through a bunch of coupons, and then Saturday
Yep.
morning when we go back up there for the game, we'll hit it again. Uh, but it depends on where you come in. That side is usually easy to get them. If you come
Right.
in on the
The
Nimitz
popular
side of the
side. Yeah.
yes, it is hard to get anything done over on that side of the stadium.
Right.
So, and that's where all the parking is too. So I think a lot of
Correct.
people do come in that way. So yeah, I hear you. You mentioned the crowd noise. Interesting situation, unique situation about this game. It's always noisy, right? And
Yep.
if you closed your eyes, you couldn't tell what just happened. You just know something happened. And there's nothing sweeter than your side of the stadium losing its mind and the other side of the stadium not losing its mind
Right.
in that game. Another cool thing, you can't if you're outside the stadium. I don't know if I wonder how the SEC policy is going to be for reentry on this deal. I know at SEC home games you can't come back into the stadium, but I wonder if Red River Shootout you can because
I think I heard that they are gonna let you have reentry because of the situation surrounding the fair and the bathrooms and everything else and the
yeah, the facilities.
construction that's going on as
Yeah,
well. So from what I was told in a meeting, I believe they said you will be able to get back in as far as reentry.
well that's good because a lot of people bounce out and get something to eat because they don't want to eat the Cotton Bowl food or whatever. So, but you can hear the stadium outside of that if you don't get back in time. You just have no idea who's cheering
Yep.
because there's half the stadiums Oklahoma, half the stadiums Texas. So yeah, man, I'm with you on all the experience. I think it's the atmosphere, the experience. I think that's what makes it unique. Without all those things, it's just another football game. And I think no matter what rivalry you're looking at just another football game. And
Right.
I think that's what people miss and why Red River Shootout is so awesome. You probably got a bunch of them, Harge. I know I got a bunch of them. What's your favorite Red River Shootout moment?
Quan Cosby, D. Cleaton, uh, Holmes, and of course the same game, Jordan Shipley running back to kickoff. Those are
Yeah,
my two favorite moments. You can go Jamal Charles, you can go Ricky Williams, Heisman pose, and all those great things. But the Doak Walker when he was wearing that jersey. But I always because Quan's a good friend of mine, and watching him decleat, oh boy, that was something that now he'll get a 15-yard penalty, be called for targeting, and
yep.
probably thrown out of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy how much the game has changed. Me and my dad were at that game. It's one of the two times me and my dad have been able to go together, and we were right there in front of that decleater, and obviously when Shipley caught the ball for that kickoff return touchdown, that was a huge play in that game.
Yep.
I think if I'm correct, Oklahoma had just gone up. What was it, 14-3 or something like that, something
Yep.
right around in there, and he runs it back, gets us back in the game, gets some life back in the Texas side. I think for me, man, it was that 2005 game where we had just got beat 5 years in a row, and it just seemed
Yep.
like we were never going to beat Oklahoma again, and we just went in there and just waxed them up real nice and proper, and that was a good one for me. But there's so many of them; it's hard to narrow it down to just one. Complicated
That's funny
topic
that you
here.
bring that up because Michael Griffin was on the show today and he was talking about that particular sequence of how is Texas ever going to get over the hump. And then finally they kicked that door in for a little bit, because
Yeah,
Oklahoma is Oklahoma and they still got all those Big 12 championships in that closet. But you brought it up, and Michael Griffin said the exact same thing. That was the time he was thinking of.
Yeah, I just think, and for me, that PTSD is still real. I mean, the show that's going to come out this afternoon, I talk about all that stuff, man, and just like how, I really talk about the last 25 years of the rivalry and just how lopsided it's been and why I think it's been like that. And I think a lot of it is just, man, well, there's a lot of reasons. This is a super complicated topic. And matter of fact, I'll ask you right now, why do you think Texas has struggled so much over the last 25 years in this rivalry?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the coaching, the staffs ahead of them, and the pieces that were missing. As always, you know that they have a ton of Texas players on that team in Oklahoma, and missing out on certain guys and looking at the actual factuals of the game. We just got out coached. It wasn't about the players because the players were equal, 5 stars all around. It was schemes, coaching, and noticing certain things that were being picked up. I mean, like most coaches say, they've been practicing certain plays all summer long leading up to a certain game. I think that their whole practice schedule, every game, was to win that game. And ours was looking at something else. So I think it all goes back to coaching.
I think you're right, man. And coaching's more than just the X's and O's. I think
Right.
Mac Brown really wanted to convince himself and his guys that, and I love Mac Brown. It's hard to find a bad thing to say about Mac Brown, but I think if there was one thing, he sort of downplayed this game, whereas I think Bob Stoops for Oklahoma was
Oh,
kind of the
yeah.
perfect guy to come in when he did and just get that blood boiling for Oklahoma, and because he knew if I can beat Texas, I win the South, I play for a Big 12 championship, and if I can do
Hmm.
those things, I got a shot at being there at the end to play for a national championship. And they lived
Absolutely.
that for a long time. And like how many championships, Big 12 championships, did Texas miss out on being in because they could not beat Oklahoma?
It
And
was
I
a
think a
lot.
lot of it just Oklahoma wanted it more. They had a different perspective of this game than we did. I think you can overplay that as well. You certainly don't want to win one game a season and it be the Red River Shootout.
True.
But I think there's a balance there, and I really hope that this coaching staff can find that balance, and we get a little more caring about this Red River Shootout because it's a big deal for the both the states. It's a big deal for both the fan bases. Big deal for college football. Let's make it fun again and win some of these damn things.
No doubt.
Key thing for you to look for on Saturday.
I've always been a big time of possession guy, and you can throw that out the window with this year's team. Time of possession doesn't even matter to Texas because they get so many chunk plays. They're explosive. I think the turnover battle is going to be huge. Whoever wins the turnover battle will win the ball game. You have a quarterback and a young freshman and Michael Hawkins that is going to take the helm for Oklahoma. We've seen what's happened with young players in this game. Some of them can piss down their leg, some of them can show up and show out. I think that's going to be key. And then you have a rusty, uh, yet seasoned Quinn Ewers that's going to get that opportunity to play this week. If Quinn can come out and play like Quinn did when Texas won 49-0, that will be a beautiful sight. So I firmly believe that the keys of this game will be the turnover margin and who plays the best.
Yeah, I think definitely the turnovers for sure because you look at Brent Venables' teams. They've always been teams that have taken the ball away. You
Yep,
take the ball away, you get more possessions, you give yourself more opportunity to score, and sometimes you score on those takeaways. By the way, and there that's one of the areas where I feel like Oklahoma's a little bit better than Texas this year. It's not
absolutely.
by much. They got a little more sacks, a little more takeaways, and I think the other thing that we got to really be careful about is stopping that running game. I know it's statistically not good, but I think one of Oklahoma's only shots in this game is to have some success on the ground, hit some shots over the top. But if you can shut down that ground game and make them one dimensional, I think you make it really hard on them. And I don't care how good Hawkins Jr. is playing. he cannot do it by himself. There's just too much speed on that Texas defense, but it's got to start up front, and that's where Texas can be a little leaky at times. Is in that run game. Statistically, on the whole, really good, but there's times where guys are getting 8, 9, 10, 12 yards. Mississippi State was able to do it pretty well at times in that game against Texas. Couldn't make it stick for a whole game, but they did it all right. And I think you look at as the season goes on, you start to play some better teams. Those little leaky runs can turn into 60, 65-yard touchdowns, and those can get you beat. Michigan beat USC on 3 long runs for all intents and purposes. So I think those are going to be areas where Texas has to win. They cannot turn the ball over for sure, because that's just we saw what happened last year. You
Yep.
turn the ball over 3 times, whatever, 3 times, 4 times. You just well, really 4 when you count the goal line stand Oklahoma had. So uh, yeah, I agree with you. I think the turnover is going to be huge. Is it too early to get a prediction from you out of this game? I know you
Yeah,
probably do your show.
yeah, I think, well, I firmly believe that Texas is going to win the game. As far as by how much, they're 14 and a half point favorite. Coach Sark didn't know it. David Benda didn't know it. Those guys are more worried about what's going on in that locker room and what's going on the practice field than they are worrying about betting lines, which I'm glad to hear. But I still Vegas knows something that we obviously don't know. And the strength of this Oklahoma football team is their defense. They're playing really good Brett Venables defense to where they're bending but not breaking. Yes, they took a loss, but that you look at them as a whole now, you're seeing a totally different football team. And Texas's strength to me is that offense. I mean, the offensive line is experienced. Running game, if Jaden Blue can hold on to the football, I think he's going to be just fine. Trey Wisner has been able to run the ball and be effective, but you still have that X factor of Quinn Ewers. How good is he going to feel? How good and healthy is he during this matchup? If he comes out and looks like Quinn, yeah, this could be a blowout just because of the explosive plays that Texas has continued to play with. Now, the biggest difference is the explosive plays that Arch runs is totally different than the explosive ways that Quinn does. Arch will let them guys go and get the football, run it down. Quinn is a little bit more slow down, let's catch it. Then you can go. I don't know. I think maybe him standing on the sideline. I know that whenever I was on the bench or on the sideline watching the game, I learned something. So maybe this is the time that he learned something and he realizes just throw it up there and let those guys go get it. So we'll see. But I firmly believe that Texas wins this game.
I think PTSD aside, I think you look at it on paper, it's absolutely a game that Texas should go win and win pretty easily. Um, I think the big X factor kind of is, in a negative way for Oklahoma, is those injuries. I don't know if we still even know who's coming back or who's going to be available for this game. So if their injury report looks anything like it did in the Auburn game, it's going to be a long afternoon for them, because they had like half their team on the injury report. It seemed like almost all their wide receivers were on the injury report. I don't know how they fielded a squad of wide receivers in that game. But there's that to me, and then it's interesting you're talking about Quinn. I've had 3 or 4 different guys on the show in the last week, and we've all talked about that. Does Quinn does Quinn see Arch making those deep throws and think to himself, I can do that too? And does that sort of change his approach to the game? Does it change his approach play to play? Or does he just be the same Quinn he's always been and say, you know what? I know my guys are going to be open short. I know they're going to be open intermediary. I'm going to get them the ball and let them make plays. And I think in a game like this, that's all Quinn needs to do. I don't think any of our quarterbacks would need to be a superhero in this game. They just need to deliver the ball, protect it, get it in the guys' hands, and let them go make plays. And I'd be perfectly content with that. If we don't throw a pass over 20 yards, I'm cool with it, as long as we're making catches and we're protecting the football and getting the ball down the field, which I think Quinn has just been masterful at this season before the injury. So I am overall very positive about this game. Again, man, I think if Oklahoma can't run the ball, they're going to be in deep trouble. And I think if Texas can run the ball, because Oklahoma's got a really good run defense. The passing defense is it's good, but it's not. I wouldn't call it elite, but I think their run defense is pretty close to being elite. I think they're giving up 2.6 yards per carry on the season, so pretty stingy run defense. But if Texas can run the ball, they're in rough shape. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't have a score prediction either. I think Texas wins. We'll do our 4 keys in a prediction on Friday. We'll do that from Dallas. I can't do a show from the Cotton Bowl though, and that upsets me. I can't. They won't let me take my equipment in to the fair to do a show. So I guess we'll just have to do it from the hotel like the old days. But Hardge, man, I appreciate having you on. You got anything else for us, Red River Shootout wise, before we get you out of here?
Well, on Friday we will be at Bar W doing our show from 2 to 6. Come by, say hello, Craig Way, myself, Mark Henry, and Cam Parker. On game day, we will be at the Old Mill Tavern right there in by Big Tex. Come by. We'll be doing the pregame show. That starts at 11:30. We'll go up until 1:30. Then we'll send you off to National with Craig Way, Roger Wallace, and Will Matthews. And of course, listen to the morning kickoff on AM 1300 The Zone or the iHeart Radio app. And if you missed any of it, make sure you get to the podcast page and check us out there and catch up on all the episodes.
Outstanding. We will definitely try to swing by on Saturday and shake your hand, man. It'll be good to meet you in person
Absolutely.
instead of, I mean, I feel like we've met like 50 times on the line,
Yeah,
but be
exactly.
cool to meet in person, man. Awesome. Harge, thanks for coming by today. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you in Dallas for the Red River Shootout. Hardball Harge, everybody. Always a good time having Hardball on. I really love talking to Harge, talking football, talking baseball. Uh, Again, just always happy to have Harge on. He's a good dude. Make sure you guys check out Harge and Mark Henry on Morning Kickoff with Mark Henry. That's on AM 1300 The Zone. That's 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Monday through Friday. You can also check that out on iHeartRadio. This weekend, if you're headed up to Dallas, they'll be at the Bar W on Friday from 2 to 6, and then at Old Mill Tavern in the fairgrounds on game day, 11:30 to 1:30. So that'll be exciting. We will be back on Friday, y'all. 4 keys and a prediction for the Red River Shootout. Check us out on TikTok and X for some in-depth coverage of the State Fair. We'll be up there all day Friday, having some food, probably some celebrity sightings, possibly a Wax Cup beer stacking update. You just never know with me. Find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow. Won't cost you guys anything. We appreciate the support. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. Folks, we're 2 days away. 2 days away from the Red River Shootout. It's like Christmas up in here. You guys have a good rest of the week. Get hooked.